I'd like to call the Finance, Ways and Means Subcommittee to order for March 3rd, 2021. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Representatives Baum, Camper, Freeman, Gant, Hawk, Hazelwood, Lynn, Ogles, Todd, Whitson, Williams, Wendell, Hicks.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And again, good morning and welcome everyone here. Members, are there any personal orders or announcements before we get started? Seeing none. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. We have 10 items on our calendar today. Item number 1 is going to be House Bill 1038 by Chairman Hazelwood. You are recognized. We have a motion and a second. Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill simply codifies that our budget analysts for the General Assembly, both the Senate and the House, would have access to the BEARS system. That's the Budget Entry Analysis and Reporting System that the General Assembly funds every year.
Okay, and this does have an amendment. We have a motion and a second, and let's verify that drafting code, Chair Lady, 3955.
That's correct, and I apologize. What I described was the bill as amended.
Perfect. Is any questions on the amendment? Seeing none, are you ready to vote on the amendment? All right, we're now voting on Amendment 3955 to House Bill 1038. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. We are back on House Bill 1038 as amended. Are there any questions to the sponsor? Question's been called. Any objections to calling the question? Hearing none, we're now voting on moving House Bill 1038 on to full finance. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1038 moves to full finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
All right, item number 2 on our calendar is House Bill 1042 by Chairman Keisling. Sir, you're recognized. You do have a motion and a second. Please continue with the brief description.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. House Bill 1042, it revises a provision governing allocation of sales and use tax revenue to certain commercial development districts. Now, I'm reading the caption on this. In economically distressed counties, by clarifying that a county bordering 3 such distressed counties for purposes of the allocation must have bordered at least 3 such counties within the last fiscal years of 16 through 17. Those of you who sat on this committee last year are quite familiar with this and have heard this before. And it was brought to me by, of course, Speaker Sexton, and it's relative to Cumberland County, where it is joined by three distressed counties. Now, currently, what's going on there in Cumberland County? There is a 33-acre retail development site off of I-40 downtown Crossville, and it's actually the property is actually located in a designated opportunity zone. There's 8 letters of intent. Of course, we want to get this property developed through TIP financing and tax increment financing. And so we do have 8 letters. I'm back to my point. We do have 8 letters of intent from national chains that are ready to locate there, provided they can get this developed. As we were in session last year, the Senate didn't take this up. So here we are again. I'm back in front of you asking for consideration. Today with me today, and by the way, Mr. Chairman, I do hope your office did receive my request. Just in case, from the department, we do have Courtney Swim here with us that can also assist me in further explaining the strategy of this. Did you have that? Did you get receive that? So with that, I'll entertain any questions, Mr. Chairman, from this point forward.
Thank you, Chairman Keisling. Members, any discussion? Question's been called. Any objections called in the question? Hearing none, we're now voting on House Bill 1042, moving on to full finance. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1042 moves to full finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committees.
Thank you. All right, members, we are on item number 3. Item number 3 on our calendar is House Bill 913 by Representative Castus. Sir, you're recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee. House Bill,
We have a motion. Second. Please continue.
so under current Tennessee law, only a vendor may seek a refund of an overpayment on sales tax. And if the consumer determines that there has been an overpayment on their part of sales tax, the department cannot interface with that consumer. And so what this legislation does is gives the department the authority to work with the taxpayers when they feel like they've overpaid on on sales tax. And Mr. Chairman, if it's appropriate, this is as all things with Department of Finance are, can be a little technical. There's someone from the department that would speak on the bill if you guys would like.
Okay. All right, you've heard the description. Are there any questions, any discussion? Chair Lady Hazelwood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And a question for the sponsor. If you can, like normally, if I return something to a store, I get my refund, including the tax. Yeah. So help me understand which particular consumers and what taxes this would apply to.
Could we go out of session and those specifics the department could answer?
Mr. Chairman.
Any objection to going out of session? Seeing none?
Okay.
Out of session. We will call up. Please identify yourself and
Courtney Swim, Director of Legislation with the Department of Revenue. So this would be more applicable to some more complicated transactions for like computer software or industrial machinery where the taxability of the item is really in dispute. And so let's say a business purchases a large piece of industrial machinery and the dealer collects sales tax on that, but later it's determined that that item could have been purchased under the purchaser's industrial machinery sales tax exemption. This bill would allow that business to request a refund directly from the Department of Revenue rather than having to go through the dealer and have the dealer request the refund from us.
And do we have any idea of frequency or is this a common occurrence or?
It's not a common occurrence that we're aware of. The fiscal note on this is not significant, I believe. There is a threshold here that the sales tax being refunded would have to exceed $1,000 to be able to follow this process. So it would be those larger transactions, but we're not aware of this being a significant issue right now.
all right, thank you. Chairman Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Ms. Swim, thank you very much. You use an example of industrial purchase, agricultural purchase as well. If someone is, and then it's later deemed that they should not have paid sales tax on a particular item to operate their farm, then that is something they could apply directly to the Department of Revenue to see that those funds return to them.
That's correct. The bill does have a couple of requirements. But like I said, that sales tax in dispute must exceed $1,000.
Okay.
And they have to go to the dealer and first request that the dealer request the refund directly from us. And if that dealer refuses or fails to follow through to request the refund from the department, they would have to document that and then apply with us.
Okay, so it's an additional recourse for the purchaser.
Exactly,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any more questions? Oh, Chair Lady Hazelwood.
And I apologize, I haven't read to know this, but is there a timing? You said if I can go, if I've made one of these purchases and I feel that I shouldn't have paid the sales tax or that amount of sales tax, then I go back to the dealer and I request it. If they refuse or don't follow through, then I can go directly to the department. Is there a timeline in there that I have to give the dealer?
I'm not sure if there is a timeline off the top of my head. This is not our bill, but we would be implementing it, and I'm not familiar with if there is a timeline in this. Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for our guests? Seeing none, we'll go back in session. Any other questions or any more discussion to our sponsor? Seeing none, are you ready to vote? We are now voting on House Bill 913, moving on to full finance. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 913 moves to full finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Good to see everybody.
Item number 4 on our calendar is House Bill 192 by Representative Wright. There he is. And sir, you are recognized as, you do have a motion and a second, so please continue with a brief description. Good to see you.
This will be a brief description, Mr. Chairman.
You get points for that, so.
This is House Bill 192. The caption reads relative to state administrative fee on local option sales tax. It's found in code at 67-6-710. And with this motion, the dilemma that I have is now gone because this bill is now ours. I'm really coming to you like a county commissioner in a way, asking for a little bit of help on the fee paid to collect local option sales tax. Questions raised by county commissioners and discussed at their recent bill review last week, and they are strongly supporting this bill. Concept of the bill has been around more than 6 years. Deals when sales tax is collected, Department of Revenue keeps for administrative cost 0.01125 of the amount collected as local tax. Sales tax collections have been on the increase, and let me give 3 different years. 2016 to 2017, local option, the sales tax was 8.5 billion. 2019, 2020, 9.6 billion. 2021, 2022 year was 10.3 billion estimated, while the collection fee on the local option part has remained at 1.125. The first bringing of this discussion was to do away with the collection fee because there is no vast amount of paperwork now, as in checks, deposits, or other paperwork as related in the past to collecting sales tax. The electronics now carry both the state part and the local part. The Department of Revenue holds the money 28 days, pushes a button, it appears in the city or county accounts. Senator Briggs and I are carrying this bill, and the .5 that you will see included in the bill for the overhead was a figure offered by Lieutenant Governor McNally. 2 more facts. Last session, this bill in the House was 1193. We never got to it. The physical note was $17,949,400. The physical impact this year's bill is $20,186,500. But I'd offer to you this is a wash. This is local option sales tax money being collected and should be remaining with cities and counties as their collected local option sales tax. Let me give you then some to where the rubber meets the road, Mr. Chairman. Hawkins County, it means $65,000. Whereas in Hancock County, it'd be $2,870. Leader Camper, this is a $2,139,200, no, triple O's, $2,139,000 to Shelby County. Let's see, Ogles, Williamson County, $921,675. The lows that I have here, I think I gave one, $2,870. Van Buren is $4,165. What I'm asking is that you consider this bill and pass this out. I will then wait on the Senate to deal with the rest of it to see where we get to. I know I shouldn't say that, but I think that's the deal on today's bill, and I ask for your support.
Well, thank you very much. I certainly see you have done your homework on that. I certainly appreciate that. And being a former county commissioner myself, I certainly understand the issue you're talking about. And I do appreciate the information about my district, so I appreciated that. Let's go to Chairman Hawk.
Thank you. Representative Wright, do you hire out? I'd love you to help me on some of my bills as well. I appreciate the information you've given.
As a former member of Knox County Commission, and that was like 11 years, this has come up years, I shouldn't say it, but it's come up years ago. And it was here before my time. It was here last session. I had the bill last session, but we didn't get to it. And now I'm presenting it now, so thank you.
And Chairman, if I could, as we're having the discussion, I've got a couple bills dealing with sales taxes as well. And as you talk about administrative costs, the retail establishment itself used to have what was called vendor's compensation, where they could deduct 2% of what sales taxes they've collected up to $50. It was on the first $250 of collected sales tax. So business used to have that administrative fee left with them. Back in the income tax days, the sales tax days 20 years ago, the concerns that came up at that time, vendors' compensation has gone away. So that administrative fee was removed from the businesses themselves. So certainly have sympathy with this particular issue. And I've got another bill dealing with swipe fees and credit cards, as well as how the sales taxes are affected by that. So it's a very deep issue that I think this committee is going to be studying and having some broad conversations about. So I appreciate you bringing it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Hawk. Chairman Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and appreciate you bringing this bill. If I understand correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, right now the state is keeping 1.125% of the locals' portion for just processing it and sending it back to them. And this bill would reduce that to 0.5%. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct. It was reducing it from 1.125 to 0.5.
Okay. That's, helping the locals keep more of what's supposed to be in their pockets anyway makes a lot of sense to me. Obviously, I would think if the Department of Revenue has been keeping this for administrative costs, then there's a concern on their side. But, we'll certainly like to hear more from them at another time. But I appreciate you clarifying that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Todd. Representative Ogles.
Thank you, Chairman, and to the sponsor. I appreciate the very detailed presentation. The one number I don't see, and I'm reading from my piece of paper here, I see this has been flagged for the fiscal impact by the administration, but what is the true administration cost to the Department of Revenue for processing this money? Do we have on the fiscal note, do we have a true cost, or so we can break down how much money is actually going back to the general fund versus what the true cost to the state is for processing these monies? And that's my question. Thank you, sponsor.
Would you like to respond, sir?
Yes, I do not have the answer to the specific question. All I can say is the reduction from 1.125 down to 0.5 is what this figure is. So they're still receiving money. We're not completely reducing the amount of money they retain.
Representative Ogles.
Thank you, Chairman, and I appreciate that number, but is that just a subjective number that we've created, moving from 1.125 to 0.5? Does that 0.5 cover the cost of the state? Because I'm all for reverting the money back to the locals. That's the money they collected. I think that money should go to them. However, we need to substantiate the cost to the state of Tennessee for the processing of that information. Thank you, sponsor.
Thank you. Like to comment?
Yes, I'd like to comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As brought to us by Representative Hawk, the ability of the vendor to have a cost has been done away with. The initial response that I received on presenting this bill was the cost of the state of Tennessee probably should go away. In other words, it's local option money being collected should all be returned as local option. And I use the example of the person making a sale. They lost their ability to have any administrative cost. I'm not stuck on the 0.5.
Okay.
I will amend it to cover what you're discussing if that number will be given to me. That's the reason I would like to see it handled at a different place than this committee at this time.
All right, further discussion. Representative Lynn?
I think it's clear, though, there is a cost to the state to administer this. We definitely would have to look at what the real costs are for the state to administer this, because I'm sure there's sometimes when they may send their report, they may send their money, and then there's follow-up work that needs to be done and things reconciled and things like that. So I don't think it's as easy as pushing a button. I think there are some steps there and things that happen where the state needs to employ people to research matters with the various governments, and we need to be compensated for that research, because it probably comes by request of the local government, not necessarily the state government pursuing a question. So, thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Todd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think the points that have been raised most recently are very valid points. And I think another point to be considered as that is looked at is there value in letting the locals stop sending that money in, their portion of it in, to only be sent back to them? Is there a reason that that's being done? Why are we double handling? I don't know enough about that to know. That's why I would ask that question. I think that's just something to consider in the whole mix of things. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Lynn.
Oh, thank you. The way the state collects sales taxes is through an online portal called 10Tap, and what they do is the taxpayer or the business pays their state and local portion at one time through 10Tap, and we give in reports. Usually it's our system-generated reports that prove our tax collections, and so those things are taken in and reviewed, and of course the locals then, their money is remitted to them. So it's the taxpayer who's paying all the money to the state, and then the state, after doing the review, then they remit to the locals their portion. So that they don't send it to us. So.
Thank you, Representative Lynn. Leader Gant.
Question on the bill.
All right. Actually, we're not going to vote on it because, as it already has been called, there is a fiscal impact, quite a substantial fiscal impact. But so the fate of this bill is it's going to go behind the budget. But as you see, I think you can very well see that there's a lot of interest in this. And so while there is still some work to be done, it does have that cost associated with it. So without objection, House Bill 192 will go behind the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
All right, item number 5. Item number 5 on our calendar is House Bill 514 by Leader Gant. Sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. What this bill is aimed at doing is exempts from the state and local sales tax the sale of coins, currency, and bullion manufactured in whole or in part from gold, silver, platinum, palladium, or other material used solely as legal tender, security, or commodity in this or another state.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Go ahead, continue.
And what I submit to the committee to consider here is that gold and silver are actually investments by many Tennesseans. And if you look at other investments, we don't pay sales tax on other investments that we all invest our money in. So I present to you, why do we tax gold and silver and other precious material as Tennesseans invest in these materials? So all this does is takes the sales tax away from these materials, since they are investments, and I'll be glad to take questions as well.
All right, thank you. Any discussion on the bill? Chairman Baum, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Hicks. How does the state of Tennessee tax, or maybe I should say, does the state of Tennessee tax exchange-traded funds or index funds that are essentially comprised of precious metals like gold and silver?
Give me a more specific drill down into what you're specifically.
Well, from an investor standpoint, some investors might choose to actually buy the collectible coins. Others might choose to purchase the bullion. Another approach would be to invest in gold and silver without ever actually physically holding it through some kind of exchange-traded fund, so that you're essentially buying gold, you're not having it sent to you, it's being held by another entity. Another approach would be to buy an index fund that's comprised of companies that mine gold. I guess what I'm wondering is there, well, I guess my first question is it possible to buy gold in an exchange-traded fund in the state of Tennessee without paying the sales tax? Is that an option that's available for investors?
Representative, that is above my pay grade, so I would not begin to even try to expound on that. There may be another member that is versed in that commodity or investment exchange, but I can get you that answer, but I do not have the answer to that.
Thank you. And it doesn't really affect my position on the bill. I was just wondering if this would be another option for investors so that they could possibly avoid the state sales tax, but I'm not sure how the state taxes, again, exchange-traded funds or index funds comprised of gold or silver or other precious metals.
Sure, I understand that. As we go forward, I'll be glad to get you an answer to that.
Chairman Hawk, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and forgive me for being so chatty this morning. I don't mean to be. I think it's very important that the fiscal notes that we've got on this particular piece of legislation, there is quoted other fiscal impact, and although it is not quantified, there's not a dollar figure associated with that. What this bill would or could directly affect a coin show, and we've talked about this for 4 years with Representative Hulsey, and now Representative Gant is bringing the bill as well. The potential of having a coin show in each grand division is going to more than make up for the $478,000 fiscal note that is on the note. So we've had this discussion in this committee for the last 4 years at least about what constitutes a trade-off. All right, we've got a fiscal note that affects us in a loss of sales tax to the tune of, as I said, the $478,000, but are we going to recoup that by 3, 4, 5, 10 coin shows that we could locate into the state of Tennessee? So that's certainly the challenge that this committee has into quantifying the actual value of this legislation. I think I know where the bill is going to go as well as we discuss it, but just to keep that point in mind as we're viewing legislation and legislation of this nature. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Hawk. Anyone else like to be recognized? Seeing none, Leader Gant, I know that you have been working on this as well as Representative Hulsey and a couple others for, I think, at least 2 years. I can remember that you guys have been working on this, so I know you're going to continue to work on it. As it's already been mentioned, of course, there is a cost associated with it, so I think we all know the fate for today. But would any closing comments from you before we'll make that ruling?
No, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you letting me present, and I'll try to answer Representative Baum's question as well as we go forward.
All right. Well, due to the costs associated, without objection, House Bill 514 go behind the budget. All right. Item number 6 on your calendar is House Bill 515. Second. By Leader Gant. You do have a motion to second. Sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. What this legislation does is it exempts smokeless nicotine products from the tobacco wholesale tax. This bill simply clarifies that any nicotine product that has no tobacco in its composition is not subject to the Tennessee 6.6 OTP tax, which is obviously other tobacco products for the OTP. With that, submit it back to you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Leader Gant. Any discussion on House Bill 515? Seeing questions have been called, any objection calling the question? Seeing none, we're now voting on House Bill 515, moving on to full finance. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 515 moves to full finance. Item number 7 on our calendar is going to be House Bill 131 by Chairlady Hazelwood. Chairlady, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you all know, Tennessee companies, underground utility and energy companies, routinely and to the benefit of our state, construct new infrastructure, doing that through the use of third-party contractors who perform real property.
We have a motion second. Go, please continue.
Thank you. At any rate, historically, these underground utility and energy companies have treated these contract labor services as exempt from sales and use tax in Tennessee while continuing to pay the sales and use tax on the materials that are used. All this bill does is codify that to make certain there have been some questions raised in some parts of the state through audits, and this would just codify the fact that we would continue to treat this as we have in the past so that we can continue to encourage that investment in new infrastructure.
All right.
And with that, any questions?
Thank you. Any discussion on House Bill 131? Questions have been called. Any objection calling the question? Hearing none, we are now voting on House Bill 131, moving to full finance. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 131 moves to full finance. We are now on item 8 on your calendar, House Bill 85. House Bill 85 has been requested to be rolled 1 week, so without objection, House Bill 85 rolled 1 week. Item number 9 on our calendar is House Bill 367 by Chairman Williams. Sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman and members. House Bill,
We have a motion second. Please continue the brief description.
thank you. House Bill 367, this body had before them last year, and we passed it in the House, but the Senate didn't get to the bill. But this bill would create a new definition for the word or the term and the use of micro market, which is technically an unmanned store that it would be housed in, usually in places of business like industrial facilities and the like, so employees can purchase goods and services for their meals that they would have there. It also allows for those entities to be able to file one report with the Department of Revenue instead of having to file a report for every individual location they have across the state. With that, Chairman, I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have.
All right, thank you for this description. Members, any discussion on House Bill 367? Seeing none, are we ready to vote on House Bill 367? All right, we are now voting on House Bill 367, moving on to full finance. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 367 moves to full finance. That brings us to item number 10 on our calendar, House Bill 141 by Chairman Williams. Sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman and members. This House Bill 141 is an administration bill in regards to entertainment tax exemption and tax credits. Annually,
You have a motion and a second.
Annually, the General Assembly has in the past funded entertainment and film grants to industry. This bill essentially would reward Tennessee businesses for their investment into film and incentives by giving them, instead of first dollars like was done, this would be a reimbursement on expenditures already made. For instance, there would be a tax rebate, or they're tax-free on any tangible goods that were purchased during that period of time, and then there would be tax credits on labor dollars spent, and those would be capped at a percentage based upon half the total. Another cap would be that you could not utilize those tax credits for longer than 15 years. There's also a higher tax credit for those tiered locations across the state to try to encourage others to do filming in our more distressed areas. As it relates to transparency, there'd be the Department of Revenue will include a report in their annual tax credit report. They'll also have a 4-year tax credit evaluation done through ECD. With that being said, Chairman and members, I'm happy to answer any questions, and we do have someone here from administration be happy to answer any questions I might not be able to answer.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sponsor. Any discussion on House Bill 141? Yes, Chairman Baum.
Thank you, Chairman Hicks. I've had a couple of people suggest to me that tax credits are less transparent than, I guess, the grants. I guess my first question is that true? And if it is there some way that we could require reporting so that the tax credits would become as transparent as the grant process has been?
You recognize.
Chairman Baum, thank you for that question. As it relates to the transparency of how we were doing it before, those grants were done and the legislature approved the dollars that were spent. The ECD would then distribute those monies, much like they would do broadband grants or any other ones. And so ECD was transparent in the way in which they spent those dollars. This has a level of transparency that is greater than that. As you could say, as you saw, there's an annual report as to how the monies were spent and how the reimbursements were given, and then there's an annual 4-year report on those monies as well. I will say most of these monies, because of it is a reimbursement on their investments into our state, that the actual reimbursements or tax credits wouldn't begin for another couple of years. And so I think we have an opportunity here to not fund with first dollars, which I think is a really important component of what we're doing here. I hope that answered your question.
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and sponsor, for years, Tennessee have been in a position where we have lost the opportunity to do or expand our film industry here. And a lot of it was because of how we incentivized for companies to come here and actually do their film, TV production. And it put us at a competitive disadvantage with other states. And so we've been trying to get the administration, ECD, to try to look at another creative way to bring the industry here. And I do see this as a first step in trying to move in that direction. Part of the reason some of the companies say that they don't come here is because there's a infrastructure problem in terms of people having the professional expertise here to do the work necessary in these productions. What this would do, I believe, is give us an opportunity to build that infrastructure, to hire more people, get more people trained on how to do this work. So I do think this is a step in the right direction. So I support the bill, and I appreciate, ECD, trying to come up with another way to bring industry here. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to support your bill, and hopefully, long term, we can do more around how do we train people for these jobs so that the jobs do stay here and we can get more film industry type production work done here. And like in Memphis, so many movies about Memphis, but they're doing the work in Atlanta and other places. And we'd like for them to do it here. So I support your bill, and I hope that we can, move this forward and get more people here in the state trained to do this work so that it's our constituents that is doing this work, and they're not bringing people from Hollywood and other places here to actually do the work. So our people will be trained and working on these productions here in the state of Tennessee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Leader Camper. Chairman Williams.
Yes, just as a follow-up, I think that's one of the benefits of this bill. I also think one of those things that I didn't touch on is I did have an opportunity to meet with one of our local higher education institutions regarding this bill. They currently have a department that is delivering degrees in animation for their students, and so those students, because of programs like this, they're able to retain those students, and they'd be able to stay here in Tennessee and invest in their communities and still stay a part of the industry here without having to go to California or Florida or Georgia or any of the other states. And so they were really excited about the opportunity of doing that because we were actually giving a place for their students to go. So I just thought I would share that as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Todd.
Thank you, Chairman. I do support the idea of offering tax credits or tax rebates versus some kind of a grant for a business like this. And obviously, the foregone revenue is revenue we don't have. It's not something we're getting right now. So this is, there will be ancillary businesses and benefits to this that we will see sales tax generated from. I think everybody on the committee knows that and recognizes that. One question that I have noted on the fiscal note is that allowing these applicants to file their F&E taxes jointly could increase the amount of F&E tax credits used by the film production industry. I don't know what that really refers to about having them file joint tax credit applications, or F&E tax filings, but do you know anything about that? Can you address that for me?
Yes, sir. I think I'm gonna look for the nod in case I miscommunicate. We may have to go to that session to do that, but it's my understanding that a company like NBC might have 2 or 3 things they wish to do in the state. It allows them to be able to file one report as it relates for all their entities for tax filings. And I'm looking for a nod. I'm not getting one, so maybe we should go out of session and let him answer. Yeah, I think Grant.
All right, we're going to ask ECD, and I think that's Mr. Grant Minshew. We're going to ask him to come on up. If that, without objection, we're going to go out of session. Out of session. Please come up to the mic and identify yourself.
Committee, appreciate the time. Grant Minshew, Director of Legislation with ECD. Just one point of clarification. The credit, when they file combined, it would be unique to one production. So instead of where Chairman Williams said they would have several productions file combined, it's more of a vertical situation where maybe NBC is owned by Comcast, and they would file combined to ensure that they're all a part of the same, essentially the same entity that they file combined under that structure. Yep.
Chairman Todd.
Do you think, from the research you've done, that it's going to increase the fiscal note or increase the amount of tax credit that they can get by doing that?
Actually, sir, I clarified this morning that the estimates used in the fiscal note were, we considered the fact that they would be filing combined within that situation. Does that make sense?
It does, it
Yes,
does.
sir.
Thank you for that.
Thanks.
All right, members, any other questions for our guest? All right, seeing none, thank you. We'll go back in session. Further discussion on House Bill 141. Questions have been called. Any objection called on the question? Seeing none, we are now voting on House Bill 141, moving on to full finance. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 141 moves to full finance.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And members, that does conclude our calendar for today. Is there any further business coming before the committee? If not, without objection, we stand adjourned. Seeing none, we stand adjourned.